Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic, special needs focused financial planning firm. I know that's a big mouthful, but basically, we're here to help. We are located just outside of Houston, Texas, but we serve families all across the United States. Today, we're going to be focusing on Medicaid waiver programs. Now, each state has their own waiver programs. Since I'm in Texas, I'm going to be referring mostly to the Texas programs. But if you're from another state, feel free to stay because these programs are applicable in every state. And some of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today is still going to be very helpful. So, a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. My contact information is in the chat box. So, if you want to reach out to me later for questions, feel free. We don't charge anything for answering questions. I want to let you know that because we're in webinar mode, I cannot see or hear you. But if you put your questions and comments in the chat box, that would be the easiest way for me to get those questions and be able to answer them for you because that way I can watch what's coming in on the chat and present the material. So, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for saying hello and letting me know that you're awake out there. The other thing I want to let you know is that we do record all of our webinars. We typically put them on our YouTube channel. After they're done being presented live, we put them on the YouTube channel. Now, recently we have been able to add commenting to our YouTube channel because of, rules about financial services and stuff like that that we have to follow. But you can now leave comments if you'd like. Of course, if you go to our YouTube channel, you're going to see that there are hundreds of videos there of past recorded webinars. So feel free to check those out. So again, we cannot hear you or see you. We do record these webinars. And the last thing is that we will send you an email later on today if you have registered for this webinar. And you'll get a copy of the slides as well as a link to the webinar on our YouTube channel. If you are watching from our channel, thank you for being here. If you are listening on our podcast, thank you for being here. If that's the case, you're not going to automatically get a copy of the slides. So you can go ahead and email us, and we would be happy to send those over. That email address is contact@cpgcares.net. All right, so again, we are a holistic special needs financial planning firm located in Houston. We serve families all across the United States. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and we're fully licensed in securities and life insurance. We are chartered special needs consultants. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we are nationally certified Social Security advisors. We take this very, very seriously because we are parents of individuals with needs. And, almost every single client that we serve has a loved one in their life with some sort of disability. So we do this day in and day out. Families come to us for things like thinking about lifetime care planning. You need your money to last not just throughout the rest of your life, but throughout the rest of your loved one's life. We can help you with planning for transition in their lives, estimating the cost of their future care once you are no longer here. We can help walk you through that maze of state and federal benefits and local resources. And, just all of those concerns that you have, we are here to advocate for you and to educate you about what you need to do for your loved one's future. There is unfortunately a lot of noise out there, a lot of maybe well-meaning people who are trying to help you, but don't necessarily know all of the rules and regulations. We are rare experts. In the United States, there are over 263,000 financial advisors, but fewer than 200 of those not 200,000, just 200. Focus on special needs planning the way that we do. So many people have worked with a financial advisor before, and we expect that many people will come to us who already have a financial advisor, and that's totally fine. We're not here to rain on any good planning you've already done. We're just here to help you see the path forward and make the maze a little easier for you. So we always advise that the best time to start planning for the future is right now. It does not matter how old or young your child is. Earlier that you can get started, the better off your family is going to be, because you're going to have a longer runway and you can make small adjustments that are going to have a large impact on your family. Sometimes we have families come to us where mom and dad are already in their 70s or 80s. And at that point, you know, making changes is a lot more difficult. Finding the money is a lot more critical. And, nobody makes great choices when they're in a rush. So let's get started sooner rather than later. Hiding your head is not going to make this any easier, and it's not going to make it go away. So think about what's going to happen after high school. You have wonderful options out there for your loved one. Maybe in the future, they're going to live in a residential community. So you can start touring and getting to know those residential communities near you that might be a good fit. Some of them even offer day programming or summer camps. That way, your loved one can get to know the residential community before, hopefully, long before they need to move in. What about vocational options? Well, of course, there are work programs. There's the Texas Workforce Commission, Higher Ability. Project Search are some of the work programs that your child can get involved with, and finding a career that might be able to fit them. And then, of course, there are educational options. Almost every college and university does offer some kind of specialized coursework for our loved ones. And you can contact the Office of Disability at whatever college your child is interested in and be able to learn about those programs. Finally, one last bit of advice before we go on to our main topic today is that we just want to make sure that you're very careful about assuming that a sibling is going to be willing or able to step in and be the caregiver of your individual in the future. That does not always work out as simply as you think it might. And it can cause some feelings of resentment kind of on both sides of that transaction. So just be very careful about that. So without further ado, today we're going to be diving into these Medicaid waiver programs. What are they? What can they do for you? Who is eligible to get them, and how do you apply for those? Again, if you have questions as we're going through, please put them in the chat box and I will get to as many of your questions as I possibly can. So, overall, we have this timeline of what life should look like for your family. So at some point, hopefully when your child is young, there will be a diagnosis. Whatever that is for your family, you're going to be working with your doctor to make sure that everything is documented. And we're not talking about just, this child has autism, but functional ability stuff should be in the medical records as well. Things like this child has autism, and that is evidenced by a, a lack of communication skills, a inability to concentrate and focus or complete tasks, an inability to follow multi-step instructions. This child needs constant supervision to be safe. Things like that should go into your medical records for your loved ones. Now, eventually, after you get a diagnosis, or I shouldn't say eventually, I should say as soon as you have a diagnosis, or if you think there's one coming, you should go ahead and sign your loved one up for the waiver programs because there can be a very long waiting list. We're going to talk about that. But as soon as you know that there's any kind of need, you should get your loved one on that waiting list. Now, you do not need to prove that your loved one qualifies for the benefits until their name comes up on the list. So that could be 15, 17, 20 years later. So you want to make sure you get on that waiting list as soon as possible. Now, when your child turns 18 years old, they should be able to qualify for SSI benefits. As a minor, the Social Security Administration looks at the parents' assets and income. And most parents make too much or have too much in assets for a child under the age of 18 to be able to qualify for SSI. But when your loved one turns 18, the rules change. And all of a sudden, the Social Security Administration is not going to look at mom and dad's assets and incomes. They're only going to look at the child. So that 18 years of age is when they should be able to qualify for SSI. And then later on in life, when the parents are in their late 60s, they would turn on their Social Security retirement benefits. And at that point, their child can get SSDI benefits. Sometimes they call that RSDI, usually SSDI. Sometimes they call it childhood disability benefits. Those are all the same thing. And that comes when the parent turns on their Social Security retirement. Now, parent can turn that on just because they're ready. Parent can turn that on because they become disabled. That's, the parent becomes disabled, they start getting Social Security, then the child will be eligible for Social Security benefits based on the parent's record. Or if the parent passes away. Sometimes this timeline gets out of whack if a parent passes away before a child's 18th birthday. In that case, there are some different rules and regulations, but that is for another webinar on another day. Today, we're here to focus on the waiver programs. So first things first, how do you get on the waiting list for the waiver programs? This is super easy. If you have not done it yet, you can do this today. You need to make 2 phone calls. It's that easy. They're going to take probably your name, your child's name, your phone number, your address, a little bit of information. And you might even think it doesn't sound very official, but it is. So for some of the waivers, and we're going to get into what all of these mean, but write down this phone number, 1-877-438-5658. That's 877-438-5658. This is the phone number to apply for CLAS, MDCP, and DBMD. Everybody on this call today, if you have a child with any kind of disability, you can qualify for CLAS. So everybody here should be calling that 877 phone number. Take 3 minutes and get it done. Okay. Now, MDCP and DBMD are a little bit more specialized. We'll talk about that. Now, for the other waiver programs, HCS, Texas Home Living, Community First Choice, things like that, you need to call your local intellectual and developmental disability authority. Some people call that your LIDA or LIDA. If you have heard things like Bluebonnet, MHMR, Harris Center, Texana, ACOG, Tri-County, those are some of the LIDAs in Texas. So you have to call your LIDA. If you don't know who that is or what their phone number is, you can just dial 211 and that will take you to Health and Human Resources, and you can ask them for your LIDA. It goes by your county. If you would prefer to look it up yourself, there's a link right there. You can just click on this link when you get the slides later on today, and this will take you to a search tool where you can type in what county you live in to find your LIDA, and you can give them a call. Altogether, this exercise might take 10 minutes max, and you'll get your loved one on the waiting lists. Now, there's one more phone number. That's for Star Plus. This is for individuals who are 21 years and above. It's not that long of a waiting list, but if your loved one is 21 or older, you should call Star Plus. Their number is 877-782-6440. Now, once you call and you do that preliminary, here's the name, phone number, address of my loved one. A few days later, maybe a few weeks later, I don't know how quickly they get you onto the website, but you have to first call, and then you can go to yourtexasbenefits.com and see where you are on the waiting list and which lists you are on. What you're going to do at yourtexasbenefits.com is make an account in your loved one's name. You didn't give these people your name, so don't look for your name, look for your loved one. Put in their contact information, and then once you create an account, you can find their waiting list information. Okay. So moving on, there are some rules about these waiver programs. Let's talk about those. First of all, like I said, they're going to waive the parental income, unlike SSI. Remember, I said that most kids won't qualify for SSI benefits because they're looking at the parents' income and assets. Well, the waiver programs waive off that rule. And that way your child could technically get benefits before age 18 if the waiting list cooperated. Other cool thing about these Texas waiver programs is that you automatically get Medicaid. If your loved one is enrolled in a waiver program, it comes along with Texas Medicaid health coverage, which is great to help you cover some of those costs. So what can the waiver program cover for you? Why would you want this? Well, waivers cover things that private insurance and Medicaid do not. So things like respite care, having someone, or nursing hours, maybe you have someone come in and watch your loved one so that you can go on a date night or go grocery shopping or run your errands. Maybe you have nursing hours and a nurse can come to the house and help you out for a little bit. It can help with modifications to your home or vehicle. If you need to add ramps or handrails or a wheelchair lift, it can pay for therapies, music therapy, massage, recreational, even like horse therapy, things like that. Adaptive aids, communication devices, cell phones, medical equipment, any of that kind of stuff, and residential services. In the future, when you are no longer here to be able to take care of your loved one, the waiver programs can help cover some of the costs of those group homes and residential communities. So it's really important to get on the waiver wait list early, though. I mean, let's say your child is 18 and you're just now hearing about this. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Your child will get these benefits later. So maybe they're going to be 40 years old when they get their waiver program. Okay, it's still going to be a huge help. So please put your child's name on the waiting list for these waiver programs. I do see some questions in the chat box, and we will get to those, so I'm not going to answer them right yet. So there are, I think, over 100 something waiver programs in the state of Texas. But the ones that we're talking about today are the ones that apply for individuals with disabilities. These four are really kind of the general broad waiver programs that can serve most people. You can assume that these might have a long waiting list. So let's get into these first four. There's CLASS. CLASS is community living assistance. And basically, anybody who has any intellectual disability or a related condition, there are over 200 related conditions. So basically, if your child has a diagnosis of any kind of disability, they need to be on the CLASS waiting list. What this does is it helps people have an alternative to go into a state nursing home because they give you the money to help keep you in your own home or in your community. They have to have a disability that began before age 22, and their diagnosis has to affect their ability to function in daily life. That's it. Now, for HCS, that stands for Home and Community-Based Services. Now, HCS helps people who do have an intellectual disability or a related condition, helps them be able to live with their families or in their own homes or in small group homes. So if you want your loved one to go to a large residential community, say something like Marbridge, Brookwood, 29 acres, that kind of place probably won't take the HCS waiver as payment for the housing. Now, when it does pay for housing, HCS is kind of the Cadillac of the waiver programs. It has the largest budget and the deepest pockets, and it covers the most. But those residential communities, many of them are private pay only. So do what you will with that. If you're struggling to try and figure out which waiver you want to be on, somebody says, we already have Texas Home Living. Should we also apply for CLASS or HCS or Community First Choice? Well, you can, and then you can see when their name comes up, which one offers you the best services and the most supports. And we can help you look at that as well. But we generally say that HCS is the highest and best. Now, Community First Choice is a little bit different because with Community First Choice, you have to already be on Medicaid. So there are income limits, but they do still provide help with your activities of daily living. They can help teach people give hands-on assistance for their health-related tasks. And the services are offered through a managed care organization. And then finally, there's Texas Home Living. That gives services to children and adults who have an intellectual disability or a related condition and who live in their own home or a family member's home. Texas Home Living is probably not going to help you pay for housing. Okay. So that's one difference between that one and, say, HCS. Now, again, these are very general, broad waiver programs that cover a large population. So the waiting lists are going to be probably right now about 17 to 20 years long. These waivers are a lot more specialized. Okay, so let's talk more about these specialized waivers that are available. DBMD is for deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. So this is a person who has a diagnosis where they are deaf and blind, or they have some kind of disease that is going to make them be deaf and blind. And they have to have another disability besides the deaf and blindness. Okay, so there's not that many people who have all three of those qualifications. The DBMD waitlist is typically less than 1 year. MDCP is next. That is for medically dependent children. So for MDCP, you have to be medically fragile, and you have to be under 21, so age 20 and younger, and medically fragile. Sometimes what we hear with MDCP is that maybe your child is not disabled enough to get MDCP because they're really looking for, you know, people who really need help, or else they're going to have to go into a nursing facility. Again, waiting lists about a year. The YES program. Now, YES is a Medicaid program that serves mental challenges. Okay. Everything else we've talked about, intellectual disabilities and related conditions. YES is the only one where the primary condition has to be something that is mental, emotional, or behavioral. Behavioral. So these are our children who are struggling mentally. They have to be 19 years old or younger. And again, a shorter waiting list because it serves a smaller population. Finally, STAR Plus. So when your child is on MDCP, that's the medically dependent one for fragile people. When they turn 21, they're going to transition over to STAR Plus. They're not just going to be dumped into the nether. They're going to go over to STAR Plus. And if your loved one is already 21 years or above, then and they're medically fragile, then you can call STAR Plus. Okay. I see a question in the chat box about DBMD, deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. So if they're visually impaired and wear hearing aids, but they're not deaf, you could try, you could look into it, but they have to, if there's a chance that their eyesight and hearing abilities are decreasing and they will eventually become deaf, you could put them on the list. But don't forget that they also have to have another disability, like autism or an intellectual disability, something of that nature. Okay. Again, class has the broadest list of who they can help. It's the largest waiver program here in the state of Texas. Now, what I want to say about the waiver programs here in Texas, they do have these really long wait lists. Different states have their own wait list programs, their own waiver programs. Some of them, as soon as you prove residency, you get a waiver. Or maybe it's 6 months to a year. Maybe it's 5 years. But Texas is generally the longest wait because we just don't have funding to be able to serve everybody in the state as quickly as other states do. So the key benefit for the class waiver, and this goes back to that person who was asking, which one is best for me? Well, the key benefit is that it's very, very flexible. They give a lot of specialized therapy that your private insurance probably won't cover. And unlike HCS, they don't offer group home placement. It is strictly for people who are going to be living in their own homes or like the family home. Okay, we're getting to these other questions. I see you guys. HCS is the most comprehensive and well-known. Like I said, the deepest pockets and the largest budget comes with HCS. You have to have a disability, an intellectual disability or a related condition. So basically you have to have some degree of intellectual disability for HCS. Whereas with class, even if you have a high IQ, you can get class. But with HCS, you have to have an IQ of 70 below, or you have to have an IQ of 75 and another condition. Okay. They're going to help people pay for either living in your home, they can do a host home or a small group home. and it's managed by your local authority. Texas Home Living is like HCS Light. Okay. You need a little bit of extra help, but you already have Medicaid. It is similar, but again, it's people who are living in their own homes and don't need those deep pockets that HCS offers. It has a limit, a capped annual budget for services. And again, unlike the other waiver programs, you do already have to be on Medicaid to get this one. Community first choice. I don't have one of these slides for all of them, promise. These are just the big four. But community first choice is a bit different because this is it's called an entitlement program. So instead of having that super long wait list, this is federally mandated. And if a child qualifies, the state has to provide services without there being a waiting list. So many people might be able to get community first choice if they're already on Medicaid, right? You already have to be on Medicaid because of SSI or a state plan or Medicaid buy-in. You have to meet institutional level of care, and you have to need help with your activities of daily living, your ADLs, like dressing, bathing, showering, toileting, transferring, eating, those kinds of things. They can provide personal assistance, habilitation programs, emergency response services, and support management. And again, there's no wait list. So you're not going to have to wait all that time. And it is managed locally by your managed care organization. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit. Let's stay on this slide while I answer some quick questions. Um, being on a waiver program does not count against you or disqualify you for SSI or SSDI or any other programs. Okay. It might actually be helpful because you've already proved that this individual has some sort of disability if they're receiving waiver programs already. Because my child is 19 and will be living at home, can I apply now for Star Plus? The Star Plus waiting list, Joyce, is not really that long. So I would wait until they're closer to 21 years old. I tried to visit a few places which are under HCS. So they would take that HCS waiver. They didn't let me take a tour and said that I didn't get approved for HCS. And plus they have a waiting list. So that's one reason it's so important to go early and get on the waiting list so that you can get your waiver and then go tour the communities and get on their waiting list as well. It's true. Some of these residential communities do have waiting lists. And that's why we recommend that you check those things out early in your journey. If it's a little bit later in your journey, maybe start narrowing down which communities you like best based on their location, their websites, get to know maybe the summer camps at those communities if they offer anything like that or day programs and see if they might be a good fit for you. Holly would like to know what waivers would help subsidize a community like Marbridge. Well, some communities like those big ones, they just don't take waiver programs. They are just private pay only. In those situations, that's where we're going to be looking at other ways that you can pay for those things, like through a full financial analysis. And we do that at Consolidated Planning Group. We can help you put together a full financial plan that would take into consideration seeing things like what those costs would be, what your life insurance is going to leave in the special needs trust, all of those different rules. Okay. I don't know the specific rules for every single community off the top of my head, so I'm not sure if Brookshire is private pay or if they would take waivers or insurance, but I can look into that later for you. If you would like to send me an email or set up an appointment with me, we can do that. There's my contact information again. Okay, so while you're on this waiting list, what if you need help? Like you're on the waiting list and expenses are just crazy, as we all know. Um, what do you do then? Well, since the waiver lists are so long, you can apply for some gap coverage. What about the Medicaid buy-in program? Well, that program allows families who are kind of in that middle income range buy into Medicaid for a lower premium. So this is families where maybe the parents are working, they don't qualify for SSI because their assets are too large and the child is under age 18. So what can they do? You can apply for the Medicaid buy-in program. There's also a program called Texas Health Steps. You might want to check into that. That can help you with medical and dental checkups and some case management services if you're already on Medicaid. Okay, so those are some things that you can do for help while you're waiting for your name to come up on those waiting lists. Now, what if you're in a situation where you need help right now? These waiting lists aren't going to cut it, and sooner is not really ideal. You need help now. So, there is what they call a crisis diversion spot. What this is you're going to contact your local authority. That's, like I said, Texana, Harris Center, Bluebonnet, MHMR. You're going to contact them and you're going to tell them that you want to request a crisis diversion spot because your child is at risk of institutionalization. What they mean is your child is going to have to go into a state facility if you don't get help. I hope that nobody ever actually needs this, but some people do. You know, what if you and your spouse are taking care of your loved one and all of a sudden your spouse passes away and they're the main breadwinner? Now you don't have that income. You don't have that that other person helping you with all the care of your child. What if your child starts to deteriorate? Their condition gets worse, and now they're a threat to themselves or others. Maybe they're running away. Um, Maybe they're self-harming. Those would be crisis situations. They might even consider, what if you, as the caregiver of your child, your parent becomes disabled and needs to move in with you. So now you're in that sandwich spot where you have to take care of your adult parent and you have to take care of your child. These are the kinds of crises that they would consider, but you do need to use that term like we're going to have to put our child into a state-run facility or they're going to have to be institutionalized if we don't get help. Okay. Once you do call them, stay involved. If you need help or you don't think that they're taking you seriously, there are options. Okay. Um, I see a question here. Holly would like to know, would someone's SSI help pay for their residential communities? So the great thing about SSI, this is a benefit that comes from the Social Security Department. It stands for Supplemental Security Income. Right now, the amount each month that your children can get for SSI, the full maximum amount, is $994 a month. So if your child qualifies, there are 3 rules to qualify for SSI. That is, they have to be deemed as disabled under the eyes of Social Security. They have to have income under the substantial gainful amount. This year, that number is $1,690 for most people. If your loved one is blind, that amount goes up to $2,830. So you can make more money if you're blind before they take you off SSI. Now, if you're working and you're earning a little bit, that's okay. But what they're going to do is reduce your amount of SSI. Okay, so be disabled, low income, and then the third one is your assets. In order to receive SSI, you are allowed to own one house, one car, and $2,000. If you have more than $2,000 in your bank account, that that disqualifies you. But you can have money in an ABLE account or in a special needs trust, and that would not count against that limit. So these are things that we talk about in some of our other webinars is, what are the rules of each of these different programs? How do they work? You might want to check on our YouTube channel for a webinar called Government Benefits 101. We kind of get into each of these different little programs and how they work and what the rules are. Okay. So once you start getting this SSI, it comes with Medicaid as well. So there's another way for your loved one to get Medicaid. But you can use the money that you receive from SSI for anything that you need. It could be housing. It could be food. Maybe your loved one wants some spending cash to go out to the movies with their friends. Maybe you need it to pay for medical supplies. Um, if Medicaid doesn't cover those medical supplies, maybe you want to save it up and take a vacation. You can save it up to $2,000 in the bank account, and then you can put some into a special needs trust or into an ABLE account to continue to save. Those are different things, it can be very complicated. And once you learn it, you're going to get it. You're going to see how the money can flow without jeopardizing their benefits once you learn the regulations of how it all works. And again, we're here to help you with that stuff and to figure that out with you. Another question I saw in the chat box is that, where did I see that? Regarding, okay, preserving benefits. So it's very, very important that you get your child on these benefits that are available to you, but then you don't want to lose them. So can I use SSI to help pay for my loved one's monthly food? Yes. Once they receive SSI funding, you can use that money on anything. Where the rules and regulations come in is once it goes from their bank account into an ABLE account or a special needs trust, that's where there is a little bit more restriction placed on what they can use the money on. So, for example, the ABLE account, which is a tax advantaged savings plan, you can use that money for pretty much anything your loved one needs, as long as it's for them and as long as it helps them achieve a better living experience. That's what the term ABLE stands for. So you can say, hey, this vacation really helps my child have a better life. This clothing, makeup, cars, computers, toiletries, whatever. You can use the ABLE account to pay to buy that stuff. The special needs trust comes with some rules. So the ABLE account has no rules on really what you can spend it on, but it has a limited amount of money that you can put into the ABLE account. This year, you can put in $20,000. Overall, the total of your ABLE account should never go above $100,000. So we see think of the ABLE account as a short-term savings account. This is your child's bank savings account. When their bank account is getting too close to $2,000, you can easily scoot some money over to the ABLE. Now, I want you to think about the special needs trust as their retirement savings. Just like for me, I have a retirement savings account. I'm not going to get in there for 30 years. I'm not going to take withdrawals or do anything with it, really. It's just sitting there building value. That is the special needs trust. When your child is no longer on SSI, remember I showed you that timeline. Let's go back to that, shall we? Let's go back to the timeline at the very beginning of this webinar. While your child is still here on SSI, they should be using their ABLE account. They cannot use the special needs trust to pay for housing. They can use the special needs trust for other things. I'm not saying don't use it at all. I'm just saying don't use it for cash or for housing. Now, when you get to this final SSDI phase on the timeline and your child is no longer on SSI, well, that rule does not apply because what it is it says if your child uses money from the special needs trust to pay for housing or to take cash out, they are going to lose 1/3 of their amount of SSI benefit. If they're no longer receiving SSI, that rule doesn't apply anymore. So at that point in life, when you are much older, maybe even when you pass away, your child can start using the special needs trust to pay for everything they need. And that rule about housing and cash goes away. Okay. Let's make sure I've got all of these questions answered. We talked about whether or not these programs disqualify you, or whether the waivers disqualify you from other programs. No. Wait to apply for Star Plus until your child is about 20 because that waiting list is not very long. If they're not letting you tour Rabab because you don't have your waiver yet, I understand that the timeline is closing in on you and you might feel a little bit nervous because what if you don't get your waiver for 10 years and then the waiting list for the residential community is 10 years? Now we're 20 years down the road. I don't know how old you are, but it can cause some troubles. I would tour the ones that will allow you to, and the other ones, narrow them down by their location and by what they offer, research their website. We sometimes do residential panel discussions. You might check our YouTube channel for that, and that will give you a feel for some of the residential communities, who they serve, and what they look like. Okay. So let's see. Which page do you guys want? Let's stay on the phone number pages so you can make sure you write down those phone numbers. Brookshire community is private pay. Most of them won't take insurance. Private pay means out of pocket, typically. What else? Okay, here's a good question. Can you have both an ABLE and a special needs trust? Yes. We want these two things to work together because with the ABLE, like I said, there's limits on how much you can put in, not what you can use it for. With the special needs trust, you can put in a bajillion dollars if you have it, but there are limits on what you can use it for if you're on SSI. So maybe one is like your wallet and one is like your 401k. Think of it that way, okay? My son has been on the class list since he was 18 years old, and now he's 35. Several years ago, they called to say he was at the top of the list, but they didn't have any funds. And now I'm checking back to see if he's on the list, and they still don't have any funding. What should I do? Okay, so listen. These programs are state-funded programs, and if you have been on the waiting list for a long time, if you have, these frustrations, you can't get anywhere, Pam, you're not getting anywhere, you've been on the waiting list for so long, what we need to start doing is contacting our state representatives. It's true. That's part of what they're there for, is to work for the public, right? Call your state representatives. And this is part of the advocating that we do on behalf of the families that we work for. We try to get them to raise that $2,000 limit every year. We fight to get them to raise it to at least $10,000. We keep trying and it's not going anywhere yet, but the more we are loud about it, the more opportunity there is to get changes to happen. There is also an office of an ombudsman. Oh, that word is hard for me to say. Ombudsman. Yes. That person is basically meant to take citizen complaints and help you find ways to solve them. So look up that office of the ombudsman. I might be spelling that wrong, and I apologize for that. Um, let's see what other questions we have. Yes, you can. Okay. Do you have any recommendations for people who are planning on attending an upcoming meeting to voice concerns about policy changes and decisions surrounding the intellectual and developmental disability system redesign? Ooh, okay, let's start over. Apparently, there's a meeting coming up where people can help with policy changes and decisions surrounding the intellectual and developmental disability system advisory committee, system adequacy subcommittee. Okay, so we're talking about the LIDA or LIDA. That's your local intellectual and developmental disability authority, right? So I'm assuming they're having meetings where you could maybe be on a board to help them make some decisions. I would say if you have the ability to get on those committees and to fight for agendas that are going to give more benefits to our loved ones, do it. They want to hear from parents like us. They want to know what the struggles are. They want to hear about those people who get lost in the middle because maybe mom and dad have jobs so that they can't get SSI benefits, but they're still so far away from being able to cover all these bills. Talk to them about your struggles. Let them know what life is really like on your side. I really hope, Jorge, that you are able to get onto that committee. All right, Denisha wants to know if your child has lost their SSI benefits, what would be the best place to start to see if they can get reinstated? The local Social Security office would be able to help you with that. If it's, I don't know exactly why your child has lost their SSI benefits. If you want to go ahead and schedule a meeting with us, I'd be happy to dig into that with you. Let's get to a couple more slides and then we'll finish up any remaining questions. So this link, again, when you get the slides later on today, this link will take you to our website events tab where you can see our upcoming webinars. That way you can put in questions before the webinar. You can get instant confirmation of the webinar link, and you even get reminders, hey, this is coming up for you. And that way, if you miss out on the webinar, if the wheels fall off the bus that day, you're still going to get an email with the slides and the link to the recording, okay? So go ahead and pre-register. Now, to all the people that I'm saying, please just make an appointment. Here's how you do that. This is a free Zoom consultation. It's all virtual. You don't have to travel to us. You can use the QR code. You could call or email the office, or you can call or email me directly, and I will schedule your meeting. You would either meet with me, my husband, Andy, or the owner of our company, Allison Scauberg. All of us are financial advisors on the team, and we can all equally help you with your questions. So what we aim to do in this meeting is answer whatever questions you have, learn a little bit about your family and give you some advice. And then we talk to you about how we work and what we do and what the process looks like. We do ask that you fill out a short questionnaire about your family so that we can kind of know what we're walking into before the meeting starts. You know, look out for that if you do schedule your consultation because we cannot meet with you without it. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up while I finish the rest of the questions in the chat. If I apply now for class for my 19-year-old, but then apply at age 21 for Star Plus, won't he just get Star Plus and that would cancel out the class application? Yes, your child would get Star Plus much quicker than they would get class. However, they can stay on the class waiting list and their name, when it comes up for that, they would still be able to make that choice. Do you want to move over to class or do you want to be on Star Plus? Let's compare those two programs and see which one is a better fit for your family. So, yes, your child would get Star Plus pretty quick, but they would stay on that class list. What other committees can we join to learn more about resources? That's from Michelle. So, Michelle, I would encourage you to get out there on Facebook. Look for groups like the Texas Parent to Parent Network or the ARC of Texas or Awesome, that's for autism, Awesome Moms. There's all kinds of great community support groups out there that you can get involved with. And they're going to be talking about how to contact your local representatives, how to get involved with some of these focus groups, and where to go to find that information. Okay. The more notes we write, and it's just like, political activism. The more you squeak the wheels, the more attention your concerns are going to get. All right. Which waiting lists would be appropriate for an older individual who was diagnosed with schizophrenia in his early teens, currently lives in a personal care home? Oh, goodness. Allison, you might want to just give us a call and let us go through your specific situation with you. I don't know how much you want this aired out in public, but because he's older, your brother is not going to be able to get all of the same services, as I mentioned before, of someone who is maybe under age 19. So let's dig a little deeper into his current benefits and what is available to him, and we can give you some advice on that. Okay. Thank you, Denisha. Okay, if parents of children who receive SSI get an income tax refund over $2,000, does that affect their SSI? I do believe it could. So what you want to make sure you do is get that out of your bank account. So one of the rules with SSI is that $2,000 limit on your assets. You can have one house, one car, and $2,000 if you're single, $3,000 if you're a married parent. You can have that money in your bank account. It can go over $3,000, but when it starts going over from like the past month is when they have issues with it. So let's say you needed to buy a car. You're saving up money in an ABLE account or a special needs trust or something like that. You can pull that money into the bank account and spend it right away, even if it's like $10,000 to buy a car. But you cannot leave it in there from, April or from March to April. You have to spend it within March. Do you see what I'm saying? For example, March 2nd, pull over that $10,000. Go shopping for that car and spend the money before the end of the month. And as long as it's back out of the account, they should not count that against you. But just be careful. Don't let it go in the don't let it stay in that bank account month after month after month. Do I have a link for the committee that we just talked about? I think Jorge might have a link, or we might be able to look that up for you. I'm going to copy and paste what he said so that you can write it down, and so that I can have it as well. Intellectual copy, and I'm putting that in the chat box for everybody to be able to see, and maybe you can write that down and see if you can get onto any of that information, get into any of that information. Okay, so if your loved one is visually impaired and wears a hearing aid, and you're asking if they qualify for the deaf, blind, multiple disability. So what we would need to know is if they are legally deaf, legally blind, or if their disabilities are going to cause them to be in the future. And your loved one has to have a disability beyond that. For example, something like autism or ADHD or an intellectual disability. They have to have deaf, they have to have blind, they have to have another disability to be able to get that waiver. Okay, and this person is saying, I pulled $3,000 into my son's ABLE account and pulled it out the same day. I think you took 3,000 from your son's ABLE account into the bank account and pulled it out the same day, and SSI still dinged you. I don't understand, Pam. I would definitely have appealed that decision. That's not at all what I've heard about that. Okay, Jorge posted a link that I'm going to copy and paste into the chat box regarding the Intellectual Developmental Disability System Redesign Advisory Committee. I'm going to ask Meredith, who sends out the email after this webinar, to include that link. And hopefully she'll send that out to everybody. Okay. And Pam, if you want to set up an appointment, we can go through that. I don't know why they would have done that to you, unless it was, if they just happened to look at the right day. That seems ridiculous. I'm so sorry that happened. You know, the system is supposed to work one way. Does it always? Well, obviously not. All right, one last slide and then I've got to go. We're already over time. This is our whole team at Consolidated Planning Group. There is a page of disclosures letting you know that we have to include these disclosures by our broker dealer. Pam, I would love to talk to you more about the ABLE account. Look for some of our videos regarding that on our YouTube channel, but we're out of time for today. Hope I hear from you again soon. Everybody have a great weekend, and let us know how we can help. Jorge says the first meeting for that committee is Tuesday, January 27th. We're going to hopefully get some more information about that and get some of our parents on that advisory board because they need to be listening to us. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Give me a call, send me an email if there's anything I can do to help you. Bye. And bye, Becky.